Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able to see your screen.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And before I start, I would like to know certain things to map the people who are with me, and therefore accordingly I can talk about it. So, Amit ji, can you just run the polls? Hello. Yeah.
Yes, we are initiated the poll and the poll is up for the participants to answer.
Yes. We are saying whether you are a coach or a leader or a free radical in the sense that are you a gig worker or you are working on your own or individual contributor or whatever. So please submit your response.
We have the responses coming in. We have almost 60% people who have voted and counts are going on. We'll wait for another 15 seconds. All right, and here we end the poll
Yeah.
and share the results. Yeah.
Thank you. So principally, most of the people are, people are leaders and some free radicals. Unfortunately, not many coaches. In fact, so it's good that, yeah. So thank you. And the second one?
All right, so we launched the second poll. So here you go.
Yes.
So the poll is up.
Yeah. Thank you. So other than the New Year resolutions, do you not believe in setting goals, or are you believe and but don't set personal goals as a practice, or set goals but not write as a practice, or have clear written down goals? What is your practice?
So we have responses coming in and almost we have received 90% of the response. So we will be closing and showing the results right now.
So what you are saying is that 50% of the people set goals but not write as a practice. And yeah, and 21% people have written down goals. Thank you. With this we start. So as I was finding that most of the people are leaders, and therefore we will be focusing on team context. At the same time, individuals who are leaders are also uh, free radicals. It doesn't mean that uh, they are not concerned about their own future. And you have already talked about that majority of the people have goals, but normally you don't write. But otherwise, uh, you some 21% people write down as well. Great. So one of the things which is necessary, we will first connect it with the what are the basic practices of leadership, and how does this all fit in. So one of the most contemporary theories of leadership is that of Cousins and Posner, who say that leadership is all about 5 practices, and these practices are learnable, and anybody can learn it, and anybody who is a leader can further improve upon that. It is not something like a talent or something. It is a learnable skill or practice, just like cycling is. So one is, of course, challenging the process. The second is inspiring a shared vision. And third is enabling. Fourth is modeling. And fifth is encouraging the heart. Are these words, phrases clear, or would you like me to describe them a little further?
No, we have not received any chat option. If you find,
Okay.
you can
Okay.
please. We have got one chat saying some of might be coaches and leaders and free radicals. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was
I,
one of.
I agree with you. That is what I was saying. That great. Thank you, Catherine. So basically, challenging the process is whatever is existing. Leadership is that how can we do better? The non-leadership practice is no, it is already always done like this here, and we follow this practice only. This is non-leadership, followership. Challenging process is uh, always keeping in mind what can we do better, how can we improve. And second is, of course, inspiring a shared vision. This is very, very important thing that we will be talking about. Every leader worth his or her name has some vision. And one of the key requirements of leadership is sharing that vision, sharing that dream, whether you talk about anybody. Every leader will have some vision. We will spend some little more time on this because that is where the goal gets connected. Enabling is empowering people, and fourth is modeling. Whatever you say, you should do yourself also. You can't expect people to be punctual if you are yourself not punctual. And encouraging the heart is connecting with the heart, appreciating, recognizing, and uh, letting the persons feel good about whatever they are doing. And so these are the five basic practices. As we were saying, that inspiring a shared vision is a key requirement of every worthwhile leadership. And that is where this setting goals or directions that gets aligned. And uh, the one of the other things is the I don't know whether you have heard of Hogan assessments. They have done a research on successful leaders worldwide, and they also say that inspiring, sharing a vision, it is one of the key meta competency. So then we were talking about, yeah, sharing, getting that vision thing. Why I was saying that why vision is important. People have their own goals. Why they should buy into the vision of organization or leaders' goals? Because leaders' goals can be different from individual aspirations of followers. It is the success lies in the leader being able to visualize a desired future and believe in it and sell it to the followers or colleagues who also tend to buy into it. Then only their individual goals will align with the goals of the leader and the organization. Uh, this person, John Kennedy, he had that vision. He talked about the first man to land on the moon will be an American. Technically, if you see that this is not a typical American would not have, I mean, there was no personal stake, but that vision, that dream makes a leader if the followers are able to buy into it. Every leader, even the leaders we don't admire, for example, Hitler, he sold a dream that Germans are a superior race. Now, you talk about even in India, for example, Subhash Chandra Bose, today we are observing his 125th anniversary. What did he say? You give me blood, I will give you freedom. Now, technically, if you ask somebody that you give me blood, in any case, after giving blood, he will become free. But that is that's on the lighter side. Basically, that dream is everything. Even Lalu Yadav, or for that matter, Mayavati, they sold a dream to their people that you can wield power. So now question is what you might ask that how it is relevant to my context if I am in a certain organization. I will just give you one example. In early 80s and late 70s, early 80s, there was an organization in Lucknow, Scooters India Limited. That set organization had a very interesting history. It was set up in 1972 after Indo-Bangladesh War, and Government of India did not have foreign exchange. So they bought a closed down plant, with the plant which was closed for 20 years, and bought it at a junk price of 6 crores. So roughly 2 rupees a kilo kind of a deal. So that plant was bought from Innocenti, Italy, and brought over and set up in Lucknow. Obviously, it was a closed down plant. When it started, then people found that many of the machines were just not working, and it could never achieve its capacity. And the people, typical public sector unit, a lot of people were recruited based on the assumption that it will run to full capacity and could never achieve 40%, more than 42%, and therefore it was always in losses. People did not used to get salary. Now, in this particular organization, there was a horticulture department headed by not even an officer. The head of the horticulture department was just a first line supervisor. But that supervisor decided that they will be the best horticulture department in the whole of the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is, as you know, in population size wise, it would be the sixth largest country in the world. And so, despite being on par with other employees where they were not even getting salary, when I was looking at them, of course, after that I lost contact, but for 10 years, every year they got at least 7 out of 10 annual awards on horticulture. Now, how did this happen? Sometimes we blame situation, context, other things. A supervisor, even a lowly supervisor, can have that dream that we will be the best in the state. Likewise, if a team leader in any organization can have a dream or a vision that my team will be the best in the company. And if he or she is able to successfully sell to the rest of his team members, you can achieve excellence, irrespective of any other context. So that dream is a critical part of not only selling it, behaving it as if you genuinely believe in it and supporting it. So this inspiring a shared vision involves envisioning the future and enlisting the support of others. Now, what are the actions for suggested actions for inspiring a shared vision, as Cousins and Posner talked about? Learning what happened in the past, acting on intuition, testing assumptions, knowing your followers, appeal to a common purpose, communicate expressively, and believe in what you're saying. We are not getting into a lot of details because we are not into a class or leadership, but I wanted to emphasize how visioning is an important part of setting goals and aligning people with it. Now, in the stages of team development, if you see, there are four stages. One is, of course, inclusion. When a person comes and the person is anxious that whether he or she is part of the group or not, then once it is there, then it gets into asserting her capabilities, her identity, so that she is accepted in the group and as a meaningful member. And then the third level is cooperation. And the fourth, of course, is co creation. Now, this concept was given by Sir John Whitmore, who was one of the foremost thought leaders on coaching. This aligns well with the other understanding and researches. For example, William Schutz, who started this FIRO-B, uh, in 1957, he gave three parts: inclusion, control, and affection. Now, affection is essentially is one word, of course, should used, but normally we don't like to use this in organizational context. So that is why cooperation is a better acceptable word, but the typology is the same. He was not so much concerned about the team working and co-creation, so he did not get into that because Schutz's classification essentially focused on interpersonal skills. There was another classification of Brooke Tuckman, 1965, which many of you must be familiar: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Performing starts at the co-creation stage when the people jointly own up the goals of the team. Sorry. Now, question is, how do you align people once they are there at the co-creation stage, or even before, for that matter? Because the leader's responsibility is also to make sure that the people are psychologically aligned. One is, of course, positive feedback. Then, second is doing things together in which they enjoy. Third is, of course, the feeling that they are being valued in terms of sharing information, sharing their beliefs, and those kinds of things. Then, sharing successes, small successes. Now, this is also critical. The larger goals have to be broken down into smaller goals that so that people can regularly have a taste of success. Now, then the next question is in fact, triple IFM. What is in it for me? How do leaders tell to people, convince them, make them understand that their own personal ambitions are going to be fulfilled as a part of the team effort? And then, of course, clarity of communication is also very critical. I have given the references also underneath. You can see, if you want to go deeper into it, then you can uh, find out more information, because as I said uh, in the promotion, that my goal is to share with you the understanding of thought leaders from the world over and on this subject. Then we also have to, when a team is a set of individuals, and a team leader also has to sit with or talk to each person to make the person realize these four factors. One is, of course, the person's abilities. The second is where the person wants to go, her own goals and values, and other people's perception, and what matters to them, what are the success factors, what are the expectation in terms of what needs to be achieved. Now, in all these four, there can be gaps. For example, a person may feel that she is very competent, but she also has to know what are people's expectations, and there can be difference. If there is a difference, then what the person has to do in terms of setting goals, even in reducing the misalignment of these. So these four things have to be taken together and seen. How do we reduce the misalignment? That's one part of setting goals of in the organization. There are two more perspectives which have to be brought in. One is, of course, from outside in, the stakeholders' view. We have already talked about success factors within the organization, but even outside, for example, what do the customers want? What do the shareholders want? And all outside in. And then future back. What is going to happen 5 years, 10 years, and so on? And then work backwards so that where are we today? And these factors also have to be added when trying to decide goals. Now, goals, we have often talked about these: specific, measurable, agreed, realistic, time bound. That's one part. Second part is that it has to be positively stated. We all know that, for example, saying that I want to quit smoking is not the correct goal. It has to be positively stated in terms of I will be in a free environment, uh, less polluting environment, better health, and so on. It has to be understood, relevant, and ethical. Now, why ethical? We will talk about it. Other than ethical, there are other issues also. It should be legal as well. And now, challenging, yes, just a sec, it is. Environmentally sounds appropriate and recorded. Now, we were asking why, just sorry for, we were asking, do you write it? The research says that writing down your goals increases the probability of their achievement by 40%. So there is a significance of recording, writing goals. Of course, in organizations, we do write goals, but it is also equally important for individuals. Of course, we will be talking about individuals later, but just to keep it in mind, why writing is necessary. Now, if it is not legal, if it is not environmentally sound, if it is not ethical, then there can be challenge in acceptance of the goals. So people do want that their organization's goals should be ethical, legal, environmentally sound, and then it has a direct bearing on the alignment of individual goals with the organization. So that's an important uh, aspect. Then we come to, of course, uh, John Collins talked about big, hairy, audacious goals. The thing we talked about challenging goals. There it comes. Just to give you a perspective that if it is not if it is not thrilling, then it doesn't bring the best of energy in the organization. So how do we have goals which are thrilling? Now, question is one, it is always possible when in organizations we are setting goals, then people may have a tendency of having a lower goal so that they are able to show better performance in terms of percentage. What is the way out? The way out is, ideally speaking, the goal should be shared with the team as a whole, and the team should be allowed to use its own processes in which they are able to apportion the goals to the team members. Of course, the boss or the leader can always come back if the overall goals are less than the expected. Then again, she has to convince why it is necessary to have the level at which the organization expects or the leader expects. And then it has to be to and fro. Trying to force the goals on the individuals does not work because people develop resistance, and then they start finding excuses why it cannot be done or why it was not done and so on. So best thing is to take the help of the organization in or the entire team in apportioning individual goals. And now, what is a well-formed outcome or goal? It, of course, it must have positive outcome. It must have sensory evidence in the sense that we should be able to look, feel, see that it has been achieved. It should be self-achievable in the sense if we are giving goal, it should not be so much, externally dependent that we have to sort out on that. Then what is happening positive at the moment, that part should be covered. Supposing it happens that they achieve something, but whatever is present at the moment, that they lose, then they develop a distaste towards the goals. For example, even in personal lives, if you have goals that you achieve, but in the process you lose whatever is good at the moment, then the distaste comes. And then, of course, it has to be appropriately contextualized. There are some things in context, there are some contexts in which the goal will be wanted and some context in which it is not wanted. Now, let me give an example. For example, you are having a goal of, let us say, in individual context, because you may understand that better, assertiveness. Now, if the goal is to achieve assertiveness, it is not necessary that assertiveness has to be used in all contexts. So that has to be sorted out in which context that is necessary or useful, and in which context we may afford not to have it. So that must be uh, clarified on that basis. Okay. I don't know whether you've heard of Andy Grove, John Doerr's classification of objectives and key results. Essentially, on a similar line, when we talk of goals, then it has to be taken in terms of three or four parts. At the beginning, it has to be these steps which has to how it is to be done. For example, set up analysis business unit within 6 months, analytics teams, something that can be done by individual by themselves. So it is 100% within their control. Then we come to performance goals. For example, this is an example from a bank perspective. Now, performance goals is build loyalty by delivering a quality customer digital experience, will streamline and automate operations and so on. Then end goals. What? This is the first two from the bottom are how. Then we have what. What are you going to achieve? And then you have why. Now, why is also very important. That is where the crux lies. The more we are able to impress upon the why, the better the chances of success. Because meaningfulness is a necessary condition for excellence or high performance. People must know why are they doing what they are doing. Recently, one gentleman died. Very few people may be knowing about him, Dr. Sharu Ranganekar. And in 70s, he had made a movie and he wanted to show the comparison of even a sweeper. And he says in a government hospital, when a sweeper is recruited, the sweeper is told you are a class 4 employee and you will do exactly as you will do. Just as a contrast, he wanted to show. And then he shows a private or missionary hospital and he says that a sweeper is recruited and sweeper is told that, you see, on you depends whether the persons will survive, with the patients will survive and get cured or not. Because on your cleanliness, the infection level will depend. On that will depend the success of the treatment. And it is so therefore your work is very important. That why question is a very critical part. In this connection, I will show that Simon Sinek's video. It's a small clip. It's not a full video. Of course, many of you must have seen, but just as a reminder.
We know why we do what we do. But then how do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the right...
I will make one interruption. He talked about Martin Luther King. In fact, he had a famous speech, I have a dream. He was yet another example of how dreams are some things which drive people. In fact, emotion itself means the thing which moves. So, in organizations context, of course, we normally don't talk about emotions, but emotions are a very critical part of uh, any meaningful action that takes
We
place.
know why we do what we do,
Yeah, I'll just fast
as we
forward a
assume.
little bit.
Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight? The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. And that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
So we have seen why. Before we move on to the individual context, just to recapitulate, we have talked about the why and its connection with the overall context, its connection with the dream, why a leader is asking people to align their personal goals with organization goals or to own up organization goals as articulated by the leaders as being in the interest of the organization. And then based on that, uh, involving the entire team in setting up or distributing the goals to individual team members, that's a very necessary part. And it is completely distinct and different from the orthodox thought of, for example, military: ask questions but don't question, or you are not supposed to ask why, you are only supposed to do as I say. Now that is the earlier thought process, which may give you minimal involvement and commitment. But if you want full involvement, if you in the modern context, when mind is as important or probably more important um, as compared to hands and minds, this is why the alignment of the dream is a very critical part of a team's effectiveness and performance. Now, here we go further. Now we go for individual context. Now, when we think in terms of individual context, again, the dream is very important, but we will come to that. Basically, our life journey is like that. Do you relate to this? Oh, well, This is at least you are using, pardon?
I was saying participants can use chat options to respond if they can relate to this picture. You have the chat option.
And it is an optimistic picture. In some places, you may go into completely different direction as well. That is also a possibility. But it's okay. I mean, as long as we will talk further about it. But basically, the difference between an individual and a team context is organizations and teams have a specific journey. They have to, uh, they have to, they are measured on yearly basis or quarterly basis, or whereas in individual context, it is not necessary that it has to be measured on on a quarterly basis or a weekly basis, because life is a marathon. It's not a 100-meter race. And people, it is not necessary that you have to be as rigorous in setting goals and monitoring on a quarterly basis. If you are able to do it, great, but it's not a compulsory thing. We will talk about that. Uh, Second thing is, let's go further. Richard Boyards is, of course, I don't know whether you have heard of him. Uh, he says you have to catch your dreams, values, winning the lottery, a day in your life 15 years from now, and legacy. These are the 5 exercises he talks about. Catch your dreams is what is it that you want to be or to have or to do. Then values. What are your values? What are your driving values? What are your motivations, values, and preferences? Then he also has an exercise in which he says, supposing you have won a lottery, what will you do? So that is one exercise. And the fourth exercise is imagine yourself 15 years from now. Who are you with? What are the kinds of feelings you are getting? What are the kinds of sounds you are getting? The sounds of sights and the kinds of sights you are seeing. And visualize in as much vividity as you can. And the last thing is, when you are not there, what is it that you would like to be remembered for? These 5 exercises are necessary for uh, tapping subconscious. Why tapping subconscious? We will talk about in a while. Let us do one exercise here. These are the values. This is an exercise for all of you. Pick up 10 values that are important for you. And once you have done it, then whittle the list down to 5 or preferably 3. I give you 5 minutes. Once you have done it, then just write in the chat box, done. Are you a game for it? Let's do it. Okay. So you have 3, 4, 5 minutes. Just first identify 10, and out of that, then you whittle down to 5 and preferably 3. Once you have done it, you don't have to share. Just write in the chat box, done. So here we go. Sorry. I understand that many of you may not be having a pen and a pencil along or and a paper handy, and therefore you may be finding difficult, but nevertheless, just attempt.
So we just need to say a done once it's over, right?
Yes.
So participants are requested to mark in the chat box saying done once you have done this exercise.
Yeah.
We are getting the responses on done, done.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you. I think we will move forward. This is a very interesting and a very critical exercise. Even if you have not completed, please do so. Let's move forward. Why do we talk about these 5 exercises? Carl Jung says, until you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What he is essentially meaning is you can't ignore it, and if you ignore at your own peril, because unconscious continues influencing your life in a very dominating way. If you're able to tap into it, it increases your power and energy to achieve whatever you want to. If you ignore it, you may be hamstrung by some of the beliefs, some of the things which you may not be even aware of, and they may be hindering your achievement of whatever you want to be or to do or to have. So, these 5 exercises, just to give you a recap, these are the 5 exercises. Just make a note. Even if you are alone, you just try doing it and see what it is that you get out of it. And based on that, you have your vision. Because when you are thinking of doing, it is not doing which is as important as being. What is it that you want to be? When you think in terms of setting direction and goals, focus on what is it that you want to be. That's far perhaps more important than what is it that you want to do. If both are in alignment, then your chances of having a fruitful life increase. Okay. What does it do it to you? First is personal vision gives you hope, it gives you optimism, and you suddenly discover that you are more powerful, you are more efficacious, you have the capability of achieving certain things. So it gives you more self-efficacy. And hope fueled by self-efficacy, it combines that you imagine that not only good things are about to happen, you will be able to achieve, and you will have more faith and hope in your ability. That's the net result of it. And once it is there, then of course you get additional energy. Uh, Coaches understand that better, that suddenly you find a burst of energy from within inside, which helps you. Now, people are different, and it is okay that they are different. For example, some people have measurable performance goals. Some people have mastery goals, that I want to master this. And some people don't find the word goal very appealing. In fact, a larger number of people are generally put off by goals. Why? So we will talk about it. For them, it is better to have a general sense of flexible statement of intention that this is what I want to be. So overall, may not be fixed goals, but that. In order of motivation, of course, measurable goal is important. That will give you this thing. But mastery goals give you motivate more that I want to be master in this. And let us see people who are having a high need for achievement, how do they see goals? And they have goals, they set up goals, and then they feel obligated to achieve, and then it gives them stress, and then they start avoiding. This is what happens with New Year resolutions. So understand that if you are not very excited about the goals, word goals, it's okay. It's okay. Uh, just to have an understanding, the learning goals uh, are more motivating, last longer rather than performing goals. Second thing is, as Bruce Lee says, a goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at. So try to set goals, but don't be very upset if you don't achieve it. It's only a beacon, it's only a benchmark. If you don't set up, then there is a danger that you may go down even further. So goal is something to be kept in mind, just that, not to give you a stress that by hook or crook you have to achieve it. That's an important aspect. And that is where we talk about setting direction. Now, even if you are not comfortable with having exact goals, try setting direction where you would like to be. And then we talk about, of course, coaches will understand this better, that once the direction is set, then you have a one-to-one dialogue with the person, that what benefits you get and the context in which the client will achieve these benefits, why benefits are important in that context. All these questions have to be answered by the individual, not the coach. Coach only asks this question, helping you discover. So this is an important aspect because a professional coaching is different as compared to sports coaching. A professional coach only asks meaningful, powerful questions. They help you to discover, to raise your awareness about. And so they ask the context, then they say why it is important to you, what else is true about the importance, then uh, what may come in the way, what may not come in the way. It is possible that you may not achieve, then what happens? Just giving you options, total picture rather than a narrow vision. So you understand all the implications, and even if you are not able to achieve, what can you do to come back to it and try to achieve? That is where the coach's intervention is helpful. And if you don't have a coach, you can have a coach, or you can yourself use this checklist to get more clarity about what is specifically do you want, where and with whom do you want, when do you want, what will be different when you get it, what you will see, hear, and feel. Why we talked about Richard Biases, uncovering the unconscious, aligning the unconscious. How would you know that if you're on track? Just measurements. Then how would you know if you're going off course? What resources can you activate to get this outcome? What resources you will need to achieve outcome? What kind of support would you need? Or how do you enlist stakeholders to remind you, to support you? And also whether you really want that outcome. because it is possible that some people may have told you and you have set up a goal on basis of that. But when you start examining in deep, then you might find it is not really that something you want it. So that's also an important question. I will leave it here because I guess that I'm on time, and I would like to complete.